So welcome everyone. As Britt said, today's session is to show you the new agenda management software that the county will be using. It's called CivicClerk, and today we're going to talk about how to log in at the start here, and then we'll jump right into the software and show you how you can find an agenda, add an item to it, any supporting information you may have, and then we'll go over some tips and tricks and have plenty of time left over for questions. We should wrap up in just about 45 minutes or so. So yesterday, I made accounts for everybody in the county. Some of you would have received an email when I did. That was from a no reply email address. So if you ignored it, understandable. It probably looked a little fishy if you had no idea where it was coming from. But some of you, when I created accounts, would have received an email that said, "Thank you for signing up. Please validate your account," or something along those lines, from no reply at civicplus.com. The email would have looked like this. Would have said, "Thank you for signing up," even though I did it for you. And then it would have had a button here to validate your account with a link that you could click as well. Now, one thing to note about this email, as you see here at the bottom, it says the above link expires in approximately 6 minutes, which means if you did not click on that when it came through yesterday, it has certainly expired at this point. That's okay. What the email does not tell you is that if you click on that link anyway, it'll send you a brand new link so you can use that to sign up and get into the system. Now, only some of you would have received this email because others would have already had an account for Civic Plus. We have a number of different products, and the county does use our website product for your website. So if you log in to our Civic Engage product or your website using an email and password, I associated this product with your account, so you would not have received an email today. All you would have to do is go to the URL that's on the screen right now, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that into Zoom chat so you don't have to scribble it down. But this will take you to a login page for CivicClerk, and you'll be able to enter that same email and password you use for your website to log into CivicClerk. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, did not receive an email yesterday, have no previous knowledge of an account, and do not know how to get logged in, go to that URL anyway, that lincoia.v8.civicclerk.com URL, and then it'll take you to a screen that looks like this. If you put in your email address, I'll put in a fake one here for now, and hit continue, it will provide a forgot your password link right here. So if you can't find that email, don't remember your login, anything like that, feel free to use that feature. It'll send you a brand new email that you can use to reset or set up your password for the first time. Once you get that sorted and you go to this URL, you'll be taken to CivicClerk, which is what we're looking at right now. This is the landing page. Anytime you log into the system, it's called the My Clerk tab, which you see here in the top left. And it acts as a bit of an action center anytime you are working in CivicClerk. And so you can see the items. I created 2 items yesterday in our user training, an introduce new fire escape plan and then a consider new fire escape plan item here on 2 different meeting dates. And so this is a great way to quickly access any items that you're creating in the system. So maybe you add an item to an agenda and you have half of the attachments you need. If you have a new version or more attachments to add, you can quickly find it this way instead of having to go all the way back to the agenda and then find your item on that list. So this will be a really handy page once you start using the system more and more. For now, though, it will be blank for all of you since you haven't created anything. So this normally would just not be present anywhere here. So that's okay. We're going to have to start from scratch, which means we'll first have to find an agenda. To do that, we're going to go over to the left-hand side of the screen here on our sidebar and click the Meetings option just below My Clerk. Meetings is where all of your agendas will live in CivicClerk, so you will spend 99% of your time on the Meetings tab, adding items to agendas, working with those items. You can see when I go to the Meetings tab here, I have 4 different agendas currently showing, one for a juvenile detention advisory committee, one for a sustainability committee, and then 2 for the Board of Supervisors here, which are our user training agendas. When you are looking for an agenda that you need to add an item to, most of you probably only add items to the Board of Supervisors unless you are in charge of another board. If that's the case, Instead of having to look through all of the agendas currently present in the system, if the Board of Supervisors is the only one that is relevant to you, you can go up to this top menu here and filter, instead of all meeting types, down to the Board of Supervisors, excuse me, if you would like, and it will filter just to those agendas. So this is a great way to just kind of narrow this down. We are creating quite a few boards in the system, and so instead of having to scroll through a list, this is going to be your best bet here. If you are in charge of another board, that filter will be helpful as well. Maybe I want to look at that juvenile agenda that we had there. I can start typing in the board name just like so, and it will allow me to filter to that board. So very quick to go through all of the different meeting types, and you can make this as customized as needed. This option is saved as well, so you don't have to do this every time. If the Board of Supervisors is the only one you care about, you do this once, and then it'll always show just Board of Supervisors agendas. And so we've got two agendas that we're going to work with today. The first one is our user training agenda, and then the second one that I created for a feature we'll demonstrate toward the end of training. When you are looking for an agenda to add an item to, you'll first want to check the bold name that you see here. Usually it's just going to be the name of the board. I put in user training today, so we know that these are test agendas, but normally this would just say Board of Supervisors, maybe regular meeting or special meeting if that were the case, anything like that. So you'll quickly be able to tell what board this agenda is for. The date and time are below, so you can quickly find the meeting that you would like to add your item to. And so once you confirm this information, you can click on the agenda to add an item. But before you do, there's one final piece of information that you'll want to make sure you pay attention to, because it can be really important. Otherwise, you might miss out on being able to add an item to an agenda. And so that piece is in the bottom left-hand corner here. You can see I've got July 5th in this little icon, and then it says cutoff in 12 days, which is July 5th. This is what we call the agenda cutoff date. It's the last day that you can add items to this agenda. Otherwise, you'll have to either contact an agenda manager if the date has passed to get the item added, or depending on how that gets handled and depending on the item, they might tell you just have to put it on the next week's agenda or the next meeting's agenda. So make sure you're paying attention to this date down here. If it's getting really close and you're still waiting on information, you'll either have to wait until the next meeting or figure out some emergency approval or something like that. If the date has passed, you will see a big red bubble. So if I switch out to all of the agendas we had a second ago, you can see that for the two here, the cutoff has passed. So I can no longer add items to this. So it'll tell you very quickly whether or not you've missed your chance, but make sure you're paying attention to that date so you can get your information in time. For boards or other boards, this is a date that you may not use, so don't worry about that. But for the Board of Supervisors, this is a date you'll have to make sure you pay attention to. It can always be updated if needed, but we're going to try to stick with this so we don't have any last-minute surprises. Once you find the agenda you want to work with, which we'll use the user training one today, we'll go ahead and click in on that agenda, and it will take us to our actual agenda page. So this is our draft page for the agenda. It is a Board of Supervisors agenda that was created just yesterday, so there's not a lot on it. You can see that introduce new fire escape plan item that I entered just yesterday, and then it looks like somebody else has gone in and put in an item as well. So this is an agenda that you can use for testing after today's training. And so once you get here, the main thing you'll do on this page is add an item to the agenda. Before we do that, are there any questions on navigating to this or the information I've just gone over? Okay. So, and feel free to use Zoom chat, by the way. I've got that up as well in case you have questions. But now that we're on our user training agenda, to add an item to it, we're going to go up to the green Create menu that you see at the top here, open that up, and select Item, the first option that you see. Most of you will only see item when you open up this menu, which makes it all the easier. You don't have to worry about clicking the wrong thing. You simply click on item and it pops up our item wizard for us. To add an item to the agenda, there are 3 pieces of information that are required. These first 3 fields that you see here. If you miss any of those and hit create down here, the system will let you know and highlight what's required in red. So it's pretty straightforward here. To add an item, we need to tell the system where it goes, what it's named, and what type of item we're adding to the agenda. And so before we even name our item, we're going to use the sections and items drop down here to open up the layout of our agenda, starting with call to order, going all the way through adjournment. And we want to select the section that our item belongs to. So if I have another item to add to consent, I'll select consent. If I have a report, I'll select report. What we don't want to do is select an item on this list. So you can see my 2 items that we have here are also present. Even if I have a resolution that belongs underneath this first resolution, I don't want to select the item because it'll actually nest it as a sub item of this item. So it'll put it 3 levels down rather than a second level down. So if you have a resolution to add, you'll select resolution. Today, we'll go ahead and go with consent just because I don't have any fancy resolution language ready for an item. And we will go forward with naming our item now. You can type your item name in here if it's really easy, or you can paste it in if you have long text or kind of official text like this resolution is. The choice is yours. If you type it in, we do have a spell check available here. So anything you type in will be checked just in case. We do have autocorrect, some autocomplete suggestions you can turn on and so on here. But if you type it in, it would be very quick to do. I only have a fire escape plan as an example for my documents and so on. So we're going to put in a new one as well. The same thing that I did yesterday. We'll just say it's for the first floor of City Hall rather than the second. So we could type it in like so, or if you have it in another document, you can paste it in, as I mentioned. But I bring that up specifically because let's say I have a document that looks like this, and we'll change this to first. It's a more official title for my fire escape plan, right? Introduce new fire escape plan for the first floor of City Hall. It's got a lot of nice formatting on it in this document. Worked really hard on it. But if I take this text and paste it into CivicClerk here, let's go ahead and remove the typed entry and paste it in instead. I'm going to get a pop-up that lets me know that some paste was detected with formatting. So whenever you copy text from a Word document or even a PDF, if there's some different formatting like color, bolding, anything like that, the system will actually carry that over and ask you, do you want to clean that formatting up or keep it? If you hit keep here, it's going to keep all that wonderful formatting we had on the other document. The problem being, this will override the default formatting that we have set on the agenda. We have a few default rules set up so we can have a consistent looking agenda. However, the system assumes that if you go in and add any formatting or keep this formatting, that you want this formatting over the default rules we've set up. And so whenever you're pasting in text here, we ask that you use that clean option instead. Even so, our system is not perfect. If you have too much formatting on text, you'll see when I hit clean, it actually keeps some of that formatting in there. That's okay. You don't have to worry about what the system has carried over, because once you paste in text, my recommendation is every time you do this, the third button in our text editor, this page with a bent corner, is our convert to plain text button, which removes all formatting on this text. See, if I click it here, it removes that bold and underline. If I go ahead and paste in that big piece of formatted text here, that button's going to do the same exact thing. It removes all formatting. So it doesn't matter what the system carries over. Anytime you paste in text, I recommend you click that third button just to make sure it looks plain so the system formats it consistently with the rest of the agenda. With this now set, we can finish off this item by selecting the item category that this item would qualify as. And so this is just what type of item are you adding to the agenda? Is it a resolution, maybe a presentation, action item? We've got a number of different options available to you here. Today, we'll go ahead and select action item here, just as an example, and then I can finally create my item. Your department should be put in automatically, so any item you create will be nested under your department. We assigned that to you yesterday when I created accounts. I wouldn't recommend changing the department because most of you only have access to your own department's items. So if you change the department on this particular agenda, then you won't be able to edit that item you just created. So leave that department field alone. Same thing with the field over here on the right. The item ID that you see here is just an internal tracking number that we use for indexing purposes. So if this item goes across multiple agendas or from one board to another for final approval, we can use this item ID to track its lifespan and see where it started and where it ended up in the system and on your agendas.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
This is Britt in the purchasing department, and I do majority of the purchase orders for the county, and each one has their own. It's for each individual department. So, as an example, I just did one to put on the agenda for next week for planning and development, but I wouldn't have access to their department number there.
Oh, so you would change the department depending on the purchase order?
Yes. And I do
Okay.
purchase orders for most of the departments.
Yep, that's fine. If you have the need to create items for other departments, we can give you that access. I just was given a warning for the default setup we did for most people is they have access to their department's items. But in the case like what you've just described, we can change your access so you can create items for any department.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I got a question in chat as well asking, can we make the clear formatting default here? We can't. The reason is we do have some agendas or some need on occasion to bold some words for emphasis or change some of the styling in an item name. And so when that's the case, we need to be able to add formatting here. So it's just a good way to build into your process that convert to plain text button. If you miss it, that's fine. Agenda managers will be checking that as well. So it's not the end of the world if there's a little formatting carried over on accident. All right, so we've got all of our information in here and we're ready to create. Are there any more questions on this page before we go into our next page?
I have a quick question. A lot of what we submit is for the consent agenda, and looking at the titles of what else is left, where would typical discuss and decide items go? It's not a report. It's not a resolution. I guess I'm.
David, then the consent agenda, the reports, resolutions, all those are underneath the consent agenda. And then below that is a field for regular agenda.
Right, and that's where I'm asking, where would discuss and decide items go?
Regular agenda.
Mhm.
And even if you get it in the wrong spot, Bev will be able to move it to the correct location.
Because am I not seeing it? I see reports, resolutions, contracts, license, minutes, claims. I don't see a regular agenda.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a regular agenda section on there right now. If
Okay,
we
we'll have
miss
to add that in then.
Okay, we'll get that added, no problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions right now? All right. So now that we've got this item ready to go, we're going to hit create item here. The green button will allow you to immediately work with the item. The blue button would be if you had a few items to add at once. So if you wanted to add 3 or 4 items and then go in and add their supporting documents, you can use this blue one. It'll pop the window back up. Today, though, we're working with just this item. So we're going to go ahead and hit create here. We'll hit create and it's going to place that item in the consent agenda and then take us directly to the item fields page for this item. Now, this is the landing page. Anytime you create an item or click in on an item, it's where all of the text information for this item lives. In this particular case, the biggest thing really is it's where your item name can be updated. And so you see this item name field right here. In case you needed to update this to something else, you could always do that. The short name is one that you don't have to worry about. This is an internal field that we use for minutes purposes. You can see it's just kind of a truncated version of our item name that cuts off at about 50 characters or so. And then the last things we have here are category and department. So if you needed to update this information, the item fields page is where you can do that. But the most important thing once we have our item created is how do we now add our supporting documents? So if you have a few different attachments that you need to add for this, we just talked about purchase orders. If you actually have a purchase order document to upload to this item, you are going to go up to this orange view menu that you see right here that currently says view item fields, where we are now. Open that up. and select the second option, Item Files. Item Files is where we manage all of our supporting documents. And so we'll click on Item Files, and it takes us to a new page with two different sections. One for item reports, which we are currently not using. This would be for reports generated in the system, which is not being utilized at the moment. And then the second is for all of your supporting documents. So every attachment you have, you can upload here. CivicClerk is a system that not only helps centralize where all of your supporting documents for agenda items reside, so you no longer have to do this via email and track different emails and make sure you have all your attachments. It allows you to upload them all here, and it's easy for the agenda managers for each board to then find and work with them. It also means that you do not have to do any kind of conversion, collation, or anything like that with your documents. If you've got 3 documents that you want to upload to this item, you don't have to worry about the order. You don't have to worry about the format. As long as it's something we can convert to a PDF at the end of this process, you can upload that item. And so if I've got a few to upload for this one, I'll click the Add Attachment button that you see here on the right of my attachment section. It's going to pop up an attachment window for us. And the dotted gray box is the only thing you need to focus on when this pops up. We're not using confidential documents at the moment, so everything you upload will be public facing. Please keep that in mind. And so once you're ready to do so, you can click on this gray box or drag and drop your files in there, and it's going to allow you to upload them. We'll go ahead and click on it for now, which will pull up a system dialog for us. And I'm already in my training files today, so I can go ahead and select the ones that I want. I've got 3 that I want to upload for my new fire escape plan. As I said, you do not have to worry about converting them or anything like that prior to upload. All you have to do is just make sure it's something we can support. And so really that means audio and video files are the only ones we can't upload here. We can't convert a video to a PDF, so that's why we can't support those types. But if you've got a PDF, Word document, image file, PowerPoint without videos embedded, Excel file, anything like that, you can select the file like I've done here, hit open, and they should appear underneath that green cloud in green like you see here. So as long as those files are in green, you're good to go. The system will convert them instead. If it's not a supported file type, it'll show in red and it'll pop up a window letting you know why it's not supported. But once you see that, you're good to upload. One thing we want to check before we do that, however, is the names that have now appeared in this new section on this window. The attachment name section pulls the name of your files and puts it over into these text boxes. And what this is asking you to check is just make sure that the names that appear here on the right make sense. So when the Board of Supervisors is looking at the agenda packet, if they're looking at the table of contents for your item, they will see these names, and we want them to be able to understand what these files are, right? You may understand what every attachment is that you're uploading, because if you've worked on this item for the last 2 weeks or 2 months, you have opened them 30, 40 times, and so you know what everything here is. However, the board will be looking at this for the first time as well as the public. And so when they look at the packet, there will be a list of bookmarks they can use to navigate instead of having to scroll through a few hundred pages. Those bookmarks use these file names that you see on the right. And so we want to make sure they can look at that and say, okay, here's a proposal, here's an introduction document. If you look at my middle one, it's a little generic. I know this is an item for the fire escape plan, but I don't know what this file has in it. I happen to know that it's an image file, looking over here at the file type. And so I might quickly just rename this fire escape diagram so I know what this file has in it. Now, you don't have to have that extensive of a name, even, in all honesty. It's already attached to the fire escape plan. So I could just say diagram, or I could just say proposal. I already know what the item is. I just need to know what the files are attached to it contain. So it doesn't have to be very long. We just want to avoid those generic names. And then sometimes if you've taken a photo from a camera or from your cell phone or digital camera, you'll see names like this. We want to avoid gibberish as well. Again, you may know what it is since you took the photo and are using it, but the board is not going to know what this is. So make sure it has a clear name here. And I accidentally hit enter without selecting this. So this is actually going to be a good example to show you what happens if you do that. But you can see it's uploading this with these new names. and then we'll be able to manage them afterward just in case we make a mistake like I just did. Any questions while we wait for that? All right, so might not have liked me hitting that fire there. So let's see. Oh, there we go. So all three of our files are now uploaded. Now I did make a mistake here. I didn't fully type it in before I uploaded the item. That's okay. That doesn't mean we have to delete it and re-upload it. If you need to rename this or you decide you have a better name for one of these files afterward, you can go over to the right-hand side here where we have this purple pencil, which is our edit button. Open that up and it will allow me to change this. And so now we'll put in that full title, fire escape diagram. I can actually upload a replacement here as well. If you have a new version of that file, you can drag it into this box and it will keep it with the name and position that it's in without having to delete and redo all of that work. So this edit option is pretty nice. I'll hit save, and now I've got my new name. Now, one last thing that I'll want to check for these attachments before we're done with this item is the order that they appear in this section. The order that these files are in right now is the order that the board will see them when they look through the agenda packet. So if you want the introduce new fire escape plan to be the first item that they see before the proposal, you can use the edit order button right above my list here. It will pop up a quick window where I can then drag and drop these items into the order that I want using these 9 dots. So drag them anywhere you'd like, hit save changes, and then it updates the page with a new order now. So my introduction document is first. Any questions on that or attachments and what we're asking you to do here? Okay. So the final thing that we might do before we wash our hands of this item and say we're done with it is preview everything that we've just uploaded. Once you have your files in the system like so, you can go up to the blue actions menu that you see right here, right at the top. This bar is present anywhere on the item pages. We can open that up, and at the bottom of the list, right above delete, is item preview. This is a handy option because this is going to pop up a temporary PDF of all attachments that you've just associated with this item. So it starts by displaying my introduction document here, which we used earlier for the title. I then have an executive brief that I used as my proposal document. And then as I scroll through, I can finally see my fire escape diagram at the bottom. And so this preview can be handy because this shows you exactly what this will look like once the process is done and we create our agenda packet. And so at the end of this process, the agenda manager for each board will combine all of these files into a single document, which is done in system. You don't have to do that manually. It's just a couple clicks to do. But whatever you see here is exactly how it's going to look in the packet. So this can be helpful because while we do support Excel documents, if you have a really wide Excel document that has 30 or 40 columns, it might not convert perfectly from our system. Excel always does its own software best. So this might give you a tip. Hey, I need to go convert that file to a PDF from Excel and then re-upload it. Or as you can see here with my fire escape diagram, it looks a little blurry. And so I might see if I can find a better resolution version of this fire escape diagram so I can have that clear in the packet. This is a great way to see what all of your documents look like. If you wanted to even download a single packet for it, you can download it right here. So you could just have a PDF version of all your attachments. Again, you do not have to worry about doing that for the agenda or the packet. CivicClerk is going to do that for you. So you do not need to worry so long as it's supported and was uploaded down here. But with that, we are done with the item creation process and adding items to an agenda. There's a few more features I'd like to show you here, but before we get into some things that you may use down the road or every now and then, for this general process, are there any questions?
What if you have like a supplemental item that gets added that you get later? Can you go back in and do like a modification? like if it's within the cancel your cutoff date. Say you get an updated document that you need to replace. Are you
Mhm.
allowed to do that, or is that not possible?
Yes, yeah. So you can update those documents whenever you need to, and the cutoff date is for new items. So as long as the agenda is not locked, which sometimes you may see an agenda locked. If it's locked, then you won't be able to do anything with it. But if it is just past the cutoff date, you can always go back to that item and add information. You can do that one of two ways. Number one, your items will show up in the My Clerk tab here. So you can see now that we're back here, here's my, I know they're very similar in name, but here's my introduce new fire escape plan for the first floor, which is what we worked with today. And so you can quickly go in here and make edits. The other option is you could go to that meetings tab and find the agenda in particular here. I went ahead and locked this to the sustainability agenda. So if you can no longer make edits to the agenda at all, you'll see a locked here in the bottom left-hand corner. Then you can contact an agenda manager if that needs to be updated. But anything else like this user training here, you can click on that and find your item. So here's my first floor. And then go back to that item files page. And instead of deleting the item, so maybe I have a new version of my introduction document, you don't have to delete it and re-upload. You can click the edit button right here and then replace the file here. So I can click in on this box, find my new version of the introduction, open that up and save, and it will replace it with the new version. Any other questions right now? Okay. So let's say you work in a department that is pretty collaborative. Maybe 2 or 3 of you might work on one item or have different attachments for an item that you need to upload. If that's the case, if you would like to tag someone in the system and let them know that they need to upload something or you'd like them to look at something on your item, you can do that by going up to the orange view menu here, which we used earlier to get to item files, and go down one more option to the item timeline. The item timeline is where we have, first off, a history of everything that you've done with this item. So you can see from the creation on up when I was uploading files and editing them, that all shows here. But the other option that we have right up top here is a message box. So if you would like to ping someone within the system and let them know that they need to look at something or you'd like them to check something, you can use the @ symbol here and then start typing in a name for someone. So let's go ahead and we'll use Joy as an example here. And as I start to type in J, it will start to narrow down our lists of all users in the system. I can then select that individual and then start typing in a message. So I could say, please upload a version of the diagram, something like that. Hit add message here, and it will send them an email letting them know that they have a new message for this item with the message that you wrote and a link to click in on that item so they can then work with whatever it is that you've asked them to do. So this is a nice way to keep that communication and audit trail within the system so we can always see what was happening with an item and efforts made. You do not have to use this, obviously. If you have Slack or Teams or email, that's fine as well, but this option is always available within CivicClerk. The only thing I would point out is if we do get an open records request for the agenda or the item, this could potentially be pulled for that request. So just keep in mind that this could be public record at some point. Another thing that I'd like to show you that you can do here is, let's say I added this item to our user training agenda like we did today, and at the meeting it was tabled. Maybe the board didn't have time to discuss it, or there was too much discussion and they decided to continue the item to next meeting's agenda. You do not have to recreate the item from scratch on the next agenda. You can actually copy that item over from one agenda to another with just a few clicks instead of having to redo the entire process we've covered. So let's say this item needs to get copied to my user training 2 agenda. To do that, we can use that blue actions menu here again. You can see it's present on any item page that you're on. So it doesn't matter if you're on the item files page, working with attachments, or if you click in on the item and it brings you to the item fields page. That blue button is always here. And the top option here is to copy an item. So if this needs to now be on next meeting's agenda as well, I'll click copy. It pulls up a few options for me here. First thing I do is tell the system which agenda does it now need to be copied to. We'll select user training 2. It thinks for a second while it pulls in the agenda structure, as you'll see in just a second. But now we select the creator, which I'm going to keep as the existing creator, which is myself. If someone else is now the champion of this item, you can instead put their name in there and find them in the list here. Start typing in their name, however you'd like to do that. And then from here, there are 3 options of these 6 that you want to make sure you copy. Number 1 is the files. So we want to copy all of our attachments. If this item is being continued onto another agenda, we'll keep the current item ID so we can track that number in the system. And then the last thing that we'll want to do is update the item layout. So these 3 options are what you'll want to select here. The item layout is important because in case there are boards using 2 different designs for their agenda, we want to make sure that if you're moving this from one board to another, that it has an updated version of the design that's consistent with the new agenda. So very top one, and then the outside 2 for the second row here. We can then rename our item if need be. So you may have seen that with that other item that I had where I switched this to consider, or you could say, you know, continue discussion on, anything like that here. We'll then go over to our item category, which we can change. We can then finalize this with saying where on the new agenda this item belongs. So the copy to drop down has the layout of the user training 2 agenda, just like it did when we created this item. So I can then look through here and you can see I have the one from yesterday here on consent. If that's where it belongs, great. If it needs to go somewhere else, feel free to select a different section, but we'll go ahead with consent. I then hit copy item down here, and it's going to copy everything I've selected up here over to the other agenda. Fields and approvals you could check as well, but we're not using them right now, so it doesn't matter. If you'd really like to just make it easy, since we're not using item reports, I didn't check that either, but if you just select all 6, makes it easy. It's going to copy the necessary information this way as well. But we'll hit copy now, and it's going to move this or copy this item over to user training 2. Oh, you can see I've got a little typo in here with continue. It takes me immediately to that new item. So once we get this success message here, we're immediately taken to the user training 2 agenda, and we're now on our new item. We'll go ahead and just update this. I'm going to remove that V. And then whenever you make changes here, if you do make changes to your item name, make sure you hit save item so that change is reflected. That covers the major features that I had to show you today. Are there any questions on this right now? Okay. So as Britt said at the top of the training here, we are looking at late July or so to start using this system for agendas and actually publishing agendas through CivicClerk. So before then, you have access to the system. We've got some user training agendas up and ready to go. So if you'd like to go ahead and start familiarizing yourself, adding some items, seeing how the system works, please do so over the next few weeks. It'll make your life easier once you get into that first real agenda. I imagine though that if it takes a few weeks before you can get in and really dedicate some time, you may forget some of the content that I covered today, which is to be expected. If you don't use it, you might not remember. When you get down to actually using CivicClerk for your first item, if there's something that we covered today that you do not remember how to do, we will have these recordings available to you. However, if you've got a 45-minute video and you do not want to look through that or scrub through that for a single thing that I covered, in the top right-hand corner, we do have a link to our help center. So at any time, if you need to reinforce a feature in the system, you can click on your initials here in the top right corner in this gold circle. It'll open up our user menu here. And the second from the top here is our help center. This will take you to the CivicClerk Help Center, which we are actually undergoing some rebranding at Civic Plus. And so this product in the future will be called Select under our agenda and meeting management umbrella. I say that just because they've already switched that here. So you're in the right spot. And let's say I needed to remember how to copy an item. I can simply go into our search bar here, type in copy, and it's going to pull up the relevant articles for us. So I can hit copy an item. And it will take me to a nice click-through tutorial here. I love our tutorials for knowledge reinforcement. Anytime you hit start here, it's going to make you click every button necessary to copy an item. So we start by going to our meetings tab, finding the agenda in question, finding the item, using that blue actions menu, and using the copy option. And then it'll go through each of those fields that we covered. So this is a great way to reinforce it. If this is too slow or not your style, we do have some screenshots below as well with step-by-step instructions. And so that can be helpful instead. It's really just up to you and what's better for your style. But this is always available to you in that top right corner under that gold circle. Any last questions today? That's it for me. All right, well, be on the lookout for more information on the first agenda that you'll need to add items for in the system. For anyone who is an agenda manager for any other committee or board, we will have an upcoming agenda management training to go over creating actual agendas, publishing, and consistency and best practices, as well as a minutes training for our minutes feature. So we'll let you know when those are happening. And then, there was one last question that made it in chat here. How will we receive signed documents back? That's a great question. Brett, do you know if they upload documents that need to be signed, are you going to download those, sign them and re-upload them, or how will that process work?
Yeah, that process won't change any. That'll be the same as in the past. The auditor's office will print off the documents that need signed, and then the board will sign them and then send them back for you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Jesse.